Hello and welcome to our Grade 10 Business Studies learners, and this is our lesson on the interrelationship between the business environments. Now, the three business environments have a direct impact on each other and are very dependent on each other. So before we start looking at the content of this lesson, let's look at our interesting fact. Now, did you know that in July of 2021, South Africa experienced extreme riots and looting? Now, the impact on businesses were that they lost 70 billion rand in damages, and the impact were on over 40,000 businesses, And then when we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, which started in May, or rather in March 2020, where we experienced a level 5 lockdown. Now, by the end of 2020, over 2,000 businesses were liquidated. And by the following year, July 2021, 1,000 more closed. So this is quite exemplary of how something that happens outside of the business can have an impact on the business itself. So this is our lesson objectives for this lesson. So we are going to look at, of course, the relationship between the components and the features, firstly, of the microenvironment. So we're firstly going to focus on the microenvironment itself. And then we're going to look at competition and why competition poses challenges to our business. Then we're going to have a look at the interrelationship between the micro, of course you know that's the internal environment, and the market environment. And we're going to discuss that with examples by looking at the relationship between the business and the consumers, the suppliers, the intermediaries, and the competitors. And then lastly, we are going to discuss the relationship between the micro market and the macro environment. So that is our lesson objectives for this lesson, and here is our concept map. So we are going to have, of course, a look at the interrelationships between, firstly, the components of the microenvironment. Then we're going to look at the relationship between the micro and market environment, and lastly, between the micro market and macro environment. Now, you should know by this time the three business environments and their components. So here we have the microenvironment. Now, of course, the microenvironment is the internal environment of the business, and it's everything that happens inside the business that can be managed by the directors. The components listed here, of course, the vision, mission statement, goals and objectives, our organizational culture, our organizational resources, and then our organizational structure. Then also our management and leadership, and our 8 business functions. Our second environment, of course, is our market environment, and this is our immediate external environment, or rather the business's immediate external environment. And the components that make up the market environment is then the consumers, our suppliers, our intermediaries, our competitors, and then the other organizations, which include organizations like community-based organizations and non-governmental organizations. Then our last business environment is, of course, our macro environment, which is our broader external environment, our biggest environment that can influence the business. And its components, of course, is our political, economical, social, technological, legal, and lastly, environmental environment. All right, so this is a bit of a pre-knowledge practice question. And the question asks, classify each of the following components according to the relevant business environment. So now it's important for us to know and understand which components is in which environments, because this will help us in this type of question. So if we look at the components, the first one being management and leadership, and then you should know that management and leadership is a component, of course, in the micro environment. So our business environment in this case, then of course, the micro environment. B is our suppliers. And suppliers, of course, is one of the components in the market environment. So this is our environment here, the market environment. So let me just write it here. There you go. Okay. C. What is competitors? Let's think, all right, competitors is one of our components in the market environment. So again, our answer will be market environment. And then our last component here is amended laws. Laws is, of course, part of the legal, excuse me, of the legal environment. And the legal environment, of course, in the macro business environment. So our answer then, macro environment. So there we have classified each of the components according to the relevant business environment. So let's take a look at our new word for this lesson. And we're going to look at the word interrelationships, meaning a relationship between two of the environments or maybe more of the environments. So our definition or explanation here states it's the relationship that exists between the micro, market and the macro environment. So meaning how are they dependent on each other and how do they impact each other. Now before we take a look at the content, I think it's time for a short break.